Hi everybody, Paddy Creedon here, back again with you to repeat our entire show that went a little bit funny technically on us, particularly with the sound at 5 o'clock. So my apologies again for that, and we're going to go through it from start to finish. Hope you enjoy it. Sit back, relax like myself, and we'll go through the 5 poems. As I said, welcome to this online poetry reading. Now my second one. The first one didn't go so well, but delighted for the retake. Thank you again for taking the time out of the stresses and strains brought on by COVID-19. We are on day 42 since the schools closed. Still safe and well, and hope you are likewise. A special thanks to all the frontline people at every level, and those in the medical world in particular, who are putting their own safety behind that of their patients. Humbling, really, but a massive big thank you. For all here in my own village, keeping the services and shops open, we all owe you a great debt of gratitude. To those who have lost loved ones or have people still battling through COVID, and I now know of a number of people, close friends of mine, who have close relatives battling through COVID, our thoughts and prayers are with you and your families. I'd like to welcome you to our home village here in Tarbert, and particularly into the family home here. And you can see probably behind me, the Shannon estuary is at the moment in full flow with a good full tide. This date, the 23rd of April 1947, my mum and dad, Brendan Creedon and Etna Mahan, tied the knot here in St. Mary's Church in Tarbert. The wedding breakfast was in the presbytery, and a few days away followed in Kinmare and Kilgarvan. Then on to 1950, when this home here, which I'm in tonight, the family home, was purchased. We had 2 previous owners, one, the Hamilton family, and the Currans. The house itself was built in and around 1850, not long after the Great Famine. Anyway, so that's the bit of history. Now for the poetry. As I said, I'm going to read 5 poems that I wrote at different stages. The first poem this evening I just finished last week, and it's really, I suppose, it summarises the reason behind why I write poetry in the first place, and why all of the proceeds from the poetry published go to the Rise Foundation. And that work is, the Rise Foundation do a huge amount of work in an area very close to my heart, which is the addiction world, and they do and provide services to families in recovery. And currently, are up to, when COVID brought down the services, I suppose, they ran 3 separate programs for families, and they also ran 3 separate aftercare programs, in addition to their one-to-one counselling services, and now their telephone service, which is still open to family members. All the funds that came from the poetry publications, in my own case, exceeded €10,000, I think, last December, and I'm greatly indebted to a huge number of people for making that possible. And in particular, I'm indebted to one woman from Finglas, Kathy Farrelly Murphy, who gave me a huge support and help at all of the readings, in literally selling and collecting the money. So Kathy, I promised I would write a note of thank you to her for all her work, and just as recently as last week, I sent her this note in the form of a short poem, and I would like to read it now for Kathy, who still carries the torch for Rise with many of her own fundraising efforts. So Kathy, this is for you. It's called The Torch of Life. It's for my friend Kathy Farrelly Murphy. You fly the rise flag for me and mine. I now offer you this gratitude sign. For a while now, we will stay at home, doing the next best thing by phone. Your extraordinary deeds are never unseen or lost, betwixt or between ignorance and bliss, stigma or shame, you carry inside an eternal flame. Sometimes in a confounded mood, I take heart from your courage food. To the very end, hold this torch of mine. It is, after all, my invisible gratitude sign. So that poem was my most recent one and dedicated to my good friend Kathy Farley Murphy. I'm going to move on to effectively two poems from the last collection that was published last December from Mind the Voice. The first one of these is a sad poem, really, I have to say, and I think there are many emotions that motivate us to write poetry, as my experience, and sadness is one of them. This one, called Refugees, fits into that category. A good friend of mine, Irene in Dublin, sent me a lovely text during the week and said this was one of her favourites of my poetry. So for you, Irene, I'm going to read this, and thank you so much for the nice comments on the poem. To give it a bit of context, this poem goes back to early in September of 2015, and as often happens with me, you wake up early in the morning, you go through the news from overnight on the iPhone, and I read a really distressing report that came with a photograph that got worldwide distribution shortly afterwards. I talk about the sad drowning of the 3-year-old Syrian boy of Kurdish ethnic background called Alan Kurdi, whose image made global headlines after he drowned on the 2nd of September 2015 in the Mediterranean. He and his family were Syrian refugees trying to reach Europe amid the European refugee crisis. The photograph of his body lying on the beach, fully clothed, is an image that I would think will stay with me forever, as it has done with many, many people. It was taken by the Turkish journalist Nilüfer Demir and quickly spread around the world, prompting international responses. So I remember writing this poem on the same day as it happened. It was one of those days, I often call them duvet days, where when you wake up and you look at news like that, you really want to stay in bed for the entire day. And that was certainly one of those days where I thought, what's the point? Anyway, the poem Refugees came out of that, and this is for Irene. Refugees. I go to the bottom of my spiritual well for answers that are not there to tell. We search beyond our inner selves to price an option that never sells. Confusion, fear and trepidation flows. Futures go missing, lives go on hold. Humankind gets lost in harmful deeds. Mankind is unable to plant ample seeds. It is no longer why, only when will goodness triumph over evil, harmony replace hate and chaos in minds of much troubled men. My man conscience is calling, as rarely do women seek out to kill. Anyway, that's the program, or the poem Refugees. I want to follow that up now with completely change in direction altogether, but from the same collection of last December. and it's a poem called Come Away Athay. And Athay, the village, I'm not sure if you know it, some people locally would certainly know it. It's one of those rich in history and culture villages that are dotted all over rural Ireland, and in many ways represents rural Ireland. And I personally go out of my way to drive through it from time to time, staying off the motorways. It has the beautiful River Galley running through it. It has a wonderful community spirit going for it, and it does encapsulate, I think anyway, everything that's good and positive about rural Ireland. Some years ago, the artist Jim Dunn, who lives there with his wife Liz, and responsible for the wonderful murals on the village, and indeed who gave me the mural that goes with the poem in the book, asked me to write a poem just about Athay. So on a Sunday in June 2015, I set off, found a quiet spot on the bridge there, and recorded what I saw in this sonnet, Come Away Athay. It is really a poem about rural Ireland, forgotten, as I said, that it has many extraordinary benefits. Maybe post-COVID, these benefits will come more sharply into focus. So I'm reading it for Jim and his wife Liz, who came and set up home there some years ago, and thank you for the opportunity and the beautiful work that you do yourself there, Jim, with the murals in Athay. So come away, Athay. Beneath the bridge, the River Galley is in tune with itself, lost inside a sultry Sunday in June. 16 ducks play away, lost children of Athay, swimming by the greenway, gone a little astray. A young family out together today, making fun, shaping their own tomorrow under a sober sun. Their toddlers' hands clasped snugly in theirs. Come away, Athay, away, away with me and stay. Angus, the immortal Daedanan deity, speaking from underneath the bridge, calls me to account, to explain the knockout blows, the yelping culls of the fallen fauna, flora, wildlife, landscapes too. While sweet Athay is chasing, toiling, having fun, 16 ducks still doing well, O friends of the earth. So that's the two poems from that collection, and I'll go on now to talk about two poems from the original book that was published back in 2015 from Mind the View. The first one of these I'm going to take is the I think a light-hearted at one level poem that reminds me about my own obsession for physical fitness, which is back on track at the minute due to being locked up, I suppose, and having to within the 2.1 kilometers. But walking it is, and it's good. But my obsession for physical fitness down the years has gone from 0 to 100 many times. And it also reminds me, this poem and this experience, really not to be taking myself so seriously. And there's a bit of humour and fun in life. Some years I was going through one of those phases of diets. I do admit to an 80-day diet of liquids only, exercises, and all of that goes with that. And one of the places I used to go to and frequent that time was a lovely health retreat in the west of Ireland, locked away from everywhere, with just some light food, lots of walks and yoga. Beautiful place. And at the end of every day there was this treat to look forward to, which was there was a treatment on offer by a therapist. So when I came back on the first or second day, I walked into the therapy room, and the conversation with the therapist went something like this: what would you like? I said, what would you recommend? She said, an Indian head massage. I said, why? She said, a man You look like a man with 1,000 things going through your head at any given time. I was stuck for words at the time, and later on I put pen to paper and came up with the poem An Indian Head Massage. So I'll read that now. In slow rhythm, she applies warm oil to her hands. Her healing skills unfold as she moves fingertip after fingertip, paw-like, across my scalp. She touches a troubled, racing mind, running well ahead of itself as usual. Pressure point, landing on pressure point. She unravels, then dismantles each roadblock, freeing me from myself, everybody and everything. Racing wild inside me now, new endorphins create and generate fuel lines of innermost thoughts. Flowing freely within and around us, love stories unfold, get shared and told. Then, by way of quiet conversation, she introduces me to myself. Lowering her head, she whispers, "It's better for you and easier for me if you don't talk so much." So I always, that always brings a smile to me, because that's kind of how that conversation ended. Lovely time, and beautiful part of the world as well. So I'm now going to share with you my fifth and final poem, which actually brings me back to the very first poem I ever wrote and got published anyway. It's a fictional piece, I think, if there are such things as fictional poems. It's about two people who haven't met since their teenage years, and they link up some years ago on the Cuckoo Walk here in Tarbert, normally held over the May weekend. So the timing is particularly apt. Their paths went in many different directions, and now they're back in their local place comparing notes. That day the Cuckoo Walk takes them down to Tarbert Island through Leslie's Woods, which is as beautiful today as it was then. I would also like to take this opportunity to thank all the people who helped in the production of the two books. Olive Stack, by the way, who not alone gave permission for all the images in the first book, but was the person who, when she saw that this Cuckoo Walk, because I asked her to frame it as a gift once, she said, "Why don't you take up creative writing?" And from then I did my first lesson in Dingle, I think, and from then it caught hold. So Olive, thank you so much for that. To people like Emily Andres from North Carolina, who supplied a lot of the images for the second publication, to Johnny Mulville in Tarbert, to Jim Dunn in Athay. Thank you so much for the images that you provided for the publication. You're all very much part of the fundraising effort and the production itself. So I'm going to read the one called The Cuckoo Walk, if I can find it here. Yeah, The Cuckoo Walk. Two blackbirds fly effortlessly overhead. Our street-side lilac tree comes into view with its sweet-scented Wedgwood blue hue, rich, free, and eternally true. We set out on our maiden flight, moving off in a deep personal thoughts, like dancers on a summer's night, setting aside momentarily our troubled selves. No insincere words spoken, no one-sided religions needed, just some life stories shared, a mistake or two uncontested. Some lessons learned, high prices paid, with no more dues outstanding to women or mankind. The soft sea breeze moves and goes in unison with the lapping tide as it ebbs and flows. Just for now, you are here and I am there. Two tall ships passing in the nearby bay in May. You slow down, stop a while, stare at me, then move on. I know we should have said and done all those things we meant to do and say. You take me back in time to our Wedgwood blue days, when our best was good enough for you and I every day. So thank you for listening. Thank you for sharing. My apologies again for the original poor quality on the sound. I hope this one is significantly better. And I would just like to again end by saying, thanking my good friend Dave O'Gorman here for coming to the rescue with the sound. And also just to remind people that next Thursday, the 30th of April, is Poetry Day Ireland, and we will be back again just to honour that event with some poetry. So good night, thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed those readings.